Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Bay of Corsairs Isle, the north part of it, playing as the forces of the Greenskins against the forces of the Empire. And this is an oddball map. I'm going to be just straight up mention that. This map is very, very weird. The deployment zones are something like this. You've got boxes like set up like that. You guys can kind of see it on the mini map. That's a bit too far. It's like there and there. So you start basically touching almost corner to corner on your deployment zones. The corners of the deployment zones are like from there to there. And it's weird. The map is very open. As you can see, there's basically no room to hide. You basically just have to straight up rush your opponent. And almost all of it, everything that's not deployment zone is Vanguard space. So there's huge potential for early game Vanguard action, for early game messiness, and just absolute disaster to strike. So it's a bit of a ridiculous map. I wanted to take advantage of it. So for my lord, we are rolling with the infamous Skarsnik, the warlord of 8 peaks, and he is here with Gobla and ready to rumble. And Skarsnik did get a buff in the last match, so he's got more HP. He's up to over 5,000, so absolutely brutal. A respectable melee lord, actually. Obviously his biggest problem is that he's a foot lord, so his melee stats are trash. Or his melee prowess is kind of trash. Now, granted, he doesn't tend to get knocked over because he does have Gobla and he's got pretty high mass, but I don't actually think he can be knocked over. But despite that, Skarsnik definitely, not to say the most competitive, but definitely not a terrible lord either. He can recharge WA pretty safely with his respectable melee stats. He applies poison and gives you bonus for large, all that. We did bring Trixie Straps, so we're immediately going to stalk our boys to try to keep them unspotted for a little bit at least. We also do have the WA ready. We do have the Spite of the Mad Moon to absorb enemy missile pressure, especially from guns. And then we do have Skarsnik's Prada to apply some pressure. It's a fun little spell, does some damage. Who can complain about that? Alongside him, there's a Night Goblin Shaman who is going to be providing the Gorkle Fix-It, Itchy Nuisance, as well as Sneaky Stabbin'. He also does have full equipment and items, which is not intentional. I simply forgot to take it off. Wand of Jet, we've got Madcap Mushrooms, as well as Sneaky Stealin'. Our front line, double Blackworks, as well as Crimson Killers. And in case you're wondering why they're so stupidly blobbed, it's because I wanted to get Trixie Traps in there. We also do have the Ragnarok Queen Regiment of Renowned Spider to provide some anti-large, as well as some good old poison and terror support. And of course, she can summon Spiderlings to compromise the backline. On the flanks, Nasty Skulkers as well as the 8 peak Loonies on one flank. On the other flank, the Warlord's Boys, Regiment around Nasty Skulkers. And finally, we do have Durkid Squigs as well as the Mogreb's Mangy Marauders. So this is basically a Regiment of Round Fest. Besides the Missile Cav and... Well, I guess besides the... Yeah, there are a few we're missing, but we actually have most of the regiments around on the field, which is pretty nuts. And I was hoping that I could sort of pincer my opponent, get in there, hopefully avoid artillery fire, and just overwhelm him with this big blob. Now, my opponent did not bring artillery, so he just simply brought a fairly standard infantry build for his lord, rolling with Karl Franz, flying around on Deathclaw. He does have the Radiculated Runefang, Galmaraz, Stand Your Ground, Foe Seeker, and Hold the Line. So full kit, very well equipped, and able to do a lot of damage. Obviously, do huge damage to the Ragnarok Queen or Skarsnik or anybody like that. Can quickly apply terror and just break units. Alongside that, there's a unit of Reichsguard on one end, Royal Griffiths in the other. I think these are a bad choice in the matchup. You don't need the huge anti-large against most Greenskin units except spiders, and you can deal with spiders with guns. And I just don't think Griffiths are that great. You can get terror on a lord, and you don't need that expensive AP anti-large. But regardless, terror, of course, is very brutal and not fun to deal with. For his casters, my opponent actually brought 2, so he's got a Light Wizard here with Shem's Gaze, as well as Net and a Power Stone. Over here, Life Wizard with Regrowth, Awakening of the Wood, and Earthblood, or not Earthblood, Life Bloom. No Earthblood, I think a little bit of a mistake, definitely a useful spell to have, but we'll see how things play out regardless. Now, there are some unbreakable units here, Sigmar Suns and Flagellants on the flank rather than center, which is a little surprising, perhaps looking to overload and push through. There are also 2 units, or Spearmen with Shields, 3 units of them. Some Spearmen in the back, single unit of Halberds to stiffen things up, and then a mix of guns, as well as a single unit of Free Company in the back to provide support. So, definitely a pretty respectable lineup. I do think the Greyfights are a little bit of an oddball choice. Reichsguard over here already swinging around. One of the risks, of course, with these infantry builds is that if your opponent goes super wide with Greenskins, which isn't that rare, they can collapse pretty quickly. It's something you want to be wary of. Now, unfortunately, over here, Karl does get in. He pops I can't talk. He pops Foe Seeker and crumps these Durkid Squigs and immediately kills 6 of them. The poor little guy's just lying there. Look at this Squig running away, hopping for dear life. Now, these guys do have immunity to psychology, but they are goblins. Their leadership kind of blows. They're definitely not going to be winning any courage awards, so they're simply running away from the Rice Guard here. And my opponent looking to get some damage in, but he doesn't see these goblins because they've all got stock. So this is potentially a disaster in the making. Now over here, we are going to pop Spite of the Bad Moon because I knew there was going to be gunfire pouring in. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually hit all of my troops. I'm not entirely sure if you... Oh, they have to stay in the range of it, which I didn't realize at the time because I just don't use these abilities. I don't use Scar Snake ever, basically. So unfortunately, these guys are not getting the support because I'm bad. And now they're getting gunned down. And I was wondering why the shield isn't working, but yeah, I'm stupid. In the meantime, the Rice Guard is closing the gap here very quickly. On the other flank, similar situation with the Griffites sitting out here on the flank. And you can see a beautiful net here coming down, net of Mintok, and melting my boys. So the poor Blackrook's taking an absolute pounding. The only boy who gets in is the Night Goblin Shaman, who's doing some work against these spearmen. Crushing Spotter did go in, killed a few handguns, but nothing too special. Now, Carl is going to try to get in here, do some damage, but Blackrook's hit hard, and they've got a lot of mass, so he's going to want to scrape out of there and run like hell. In the meantime, the poor Rice Guard here gets snared. They get trapped by the nasty Skulkers, by the Queen. They're getting slowed because she's, of course, applying poison, and she's got poison arrows, and they're getting dragged into the gutter, so an absolutely devastating situation for them. These guys are not going to be leaving anytime soon. You can see Turket Squigs come in there to finish the job. Over here on this flank, in the meantime, the Griffites, once again, getting snared by the Skulkers and chopped to bits. In the meantime, the Fanatics jumping in against Sigmar Sons, and we're simply piling in. Blackrook's piling through, Crimson Killer's diving in, Wah goes off, and this frontline fight is not going to last very long. It is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Now, unfortunately, Night Goblin Shaman is routed because I wasn't paying good attention, and he's getting shot a little bit as well, so definitely a bit of a misplay, but what can you do? The front line basically buckled. Flagellants and Spears not holding very well, and first summon's going off because I saw that my opponent had these guns. This was actually a clever move, positioning the guns out on the flank to get full volley on the Blackrook, so very well played there. But I saw that, and I'm going to summon some spiders to shut that down. In the meantime, in the pits, of course, Crimson Killers just mow through trash, and they don't care. They got way too much armor, passable melee defense, and with sneaky stabbing, they're just tearing these guys to shreds. The Spearmen and the Flagellants stand 0 chance. Skarsnik's in there as well, providing support. Now Gorkle Fixit is in there because I wanted to keep Franz trapped and facing the Ragnarok Queen, so he's getting slowed. He's getting punked, and he's down to 26 speed between the poison and the Gorkle Fixit. He's not really able to scrape away, and he's taking pounding. The Ragnarok Queen, she's not a pushover. She does almost 400 damage, and of course has a bonus versus large, I think 14, so not bad. And Carl's down a good bit. He's down to 3,000. He's running for dear life, and yeah, so not good for him. But that said, these handguns rallying out in the distance. My opponent has a lot of reserve infantry that he's able to push in, sort of cut off my spiders, so they're not able to push through. And things are looking a little hairy now. Balance of power is in my favor a little bit, but that could be misleading because, of course, if I lose Skarsnik or my leadership, that can quickly turn around. Sneaky Stabbing does go down on the Ragnarok Queen because I was just trying to get in on Friends, but Regrowth counteracts a lot of this damage. So it's a bit of a tight fight, and unfortunately, my Night Goblin Shaman here is going to go down. He's forced to rout. He just retreats from the field in total defeat. But we do get a nice little spider summon here, tie down these handguns. And Dark and Squay is doing their best for the people here, trying to just tie these guys down. So desperate situation here, just trying to shut down these guns and buy time for the Queen. And she actually succeeds a good bit here. She forces her friends off. He's been regrowthed, but he's down a lot of HP. And healing that's going to be tough. The Wizards are also in a bad spot. They're getting chewed up very, very badly. The Queen just brutal this game. Just obviously only up to 2 kills against the Reichsguard early on, but it's doing so much damage. You can't see over there. Skarsnik's Potter goes in, does a lot of damage, up to 48 kills on Skarsnik, so he's had an absolute joyous time of it. And the handguns do rout. So taking over, I can look, you can see Balance of Power very much in my favor. But that said, there's still potential. My opponent does have a lot of guns. He's got Free Company, he's got a half unit of handguns fleeing the field, and over this flank, things are actually looking okay. Now Demigriff's kind of thrown away here. I think my opponent needed to be microing them, but he was too focused on France, and these guys need to be sort of playing safer and then getting terror routes on the peripheral troops. So especially the Warlords Boys. Now, Warlords Boys are immune to psychology, but you could rear charge them and route them. Nasty Skulkers, all those units could be routed much more effectively. And I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity there because my opponent's wasting his time here essentially with the rear fights, mopping up a bunch of crappy second-rate troops, while another wad does go off and munches through these enemies, the halberdiers especially. Our Blackhawks actually recovered. They're back in the fight. And the Queen actually surviving okay. You can see we're forcing out these handguns. At this point, because my opponent is out of those reserve troops, he's no longer able to cut off and sort of protect or quarantine off his guns. And the Spiderlings doing work. Spiderlings are pretty nasty. They don't have good melee stats for sure. They do apply poison. They're very quick. And they're basically just unstoppable. They can just get in there and do a lot of damage. And some of the things decisively coming into my favor. You can see Carl here trying to dive in on Scarsnake, but Scarsnake sticks around. He is terrified, unfortunately. He's not immune to psychology, poor little guy. But the halberds and the spearmen getting overrun. And with that, it's kind of coming down to endgame. Carl here making a bit of a misplay, diving in on the Black Orcs when he really probably should have gone after the Scarsnake. Try to remove him from play, but at this stage, I think it's just too little too late. Even if he does remove Scarsnake from play, the Black Orcs are just too tough. Riffites are not going to cut it. Granted, we have lost our caster, so we don't have the greatest crowd control anymore, but we do have the Queen here. She's still around kicking. Spiderlings doing their work, doing the Green Lord's work, running down these guns, who are the biggest threat. If we can remove those guns, there's nothing that can touch her. Into the late game, the Free Company, of course, is not going to do that. Scarsnake is in here. He's helping out a little bit. I figure Carl just desperately trying to get in on the Black Orcs, but immunity psychology, it's an amazing trait. Now, granted, Blood Roar I think applies. You can see it is actually triggering down here. But that's just one debuff, and the rest of these guys will hold around. You can see Carl there actually routes Black Orcs rally, and they're actually going to chase him down here. I do believe, did they cut him down? No, he's going to scrape away on 42 HP, which is nuts. But at this stage, it's basically game over. We're just cleaning up. Handgun fire, harassing the Ragnarok Queen a little bit, but she just has too much HP left. Even if both dead guns rallied at this point and shot her up, it just wouldn't cut the mustard. Shem's Burning Gaze goes through, completely whiffs. And yeah, we're just cleaning up. Free Company, of course, can't really do much. And this huge pocket of Black Orcs is just going to be devastating. So at this point, we're going to fast forward a little bit. You can see the Sigmarsons, they're getting overwhelmed. Carl actually rallies 42 HP, but it's too... Alright, and I think he actually got a heal there from one of the Life Wizards, but it's too little too late. And a Pyrrhic victory for the Greenskins. So a fun little match where Scarsnake got to shine. I thought Scarsnake was pretty fun to use. He's not a most competitive Lord choice, but honestly not a bad choice either. I did do some things incorrectly there, like using the Spite of the Bad Moon wrong. If I'd timed it and kept him in touch with the Black Orcs, I could have protected them from a huge amount of that gunfire. 50% of it, in fact. So that was a huge misplay on my part. I just didn't realize I have to follow him along, so I done goofed. I also let my shaman get way overextended and dead, which really screwed me. That said, I do think that this showed just how well first of all, it showed that Scarsnake's not bad as a just straight up wall battery, and Scarsnake's Plotter can do some damage. Out of these 63 kills, I think a good 50 or so were from the Plotter, and wiping out the handguns especially. Did good. And what I really think it highlighted was the Ragnarok Queen. She's pretty amazing. Now 50 kills, I'm not entirely sure what she was killing, but I'm not too concerned about like specifically just kill count. But she messed up the Reichsguard, and more importantly, she messed up France completely. The buffs to the Spider, getting it 14 bonus versus large, were huge. It takes your melee attack up to really respectable. The Spider always had pretty good offensive stats. It didn't have the greatest melee defense, which it still doesn't. But melee attack was always decent, and suddenly it's in a monster's tier. It's suddenly in a very, very good tier, and you've got poison on top of that, so despite its low weapon strength, it can poison and debuff troops, makes it harder for them to escape, force them to fight you. Combine that with especially Gork'll Fix It, and you can force an enemy to stand and fight. And it's pretty cool. Besides that, Black Orcs, I don't think this is necessarily the most competitive build against Empire. It's very narrow. Generally, I think you want to go a little wider. Perhaps just bring 2 Black Orcs. You don't need the Crimson Killers. Maybe get like some Savages in there, some big guns maybe. Maybe some more Cav to disrupt backlines. But as far as just a fun, silly little build goes, I do think this is relatively competitive. As far as my opponent's build, way too much infantry in my opinion. Or way too much expensive infantry, perhaps would be a more accurate way of putting it. Halberdiers, Sigmar Sons aren't bad, but especially Halberdiers and Flagellants, just not worth it in my opinion. Just get more spears. Double Wizard, not worth it. Bring 1. Sort out what you want. Bring 1. Carl, not a bad choice, but I think he has Greenskins. He's not necessarily unless you're looking for... If you're looking for a Blood Roar combo, it's better to do Boris plus Amber Wizard, in my opinion. In which case, you might want to bring a second caster, Life Caster. But if you're looking to bring a Lord, I don't think Carl's really the way to go. You can snipe Greenskin Lords well enough with Boris. He's cheaper, he regens, and he gives debuffs constantly around himself. Carl, he's really good, but he's just too good. Like you're paying for quality you don't need as a match, in my opinion. So you could easily cut a caster, cut Carl down to Boris, cut especially these expensive troops. Maybe not even get more spears. Maybe cut like the Free Company, get more guns, cut the Demigrave Knights. You don't need Demigrave Knights. If you're just looking to do a defensive sort of bunker build, get more guns, get more cheap troops, and get maybe some cheaper cav as well. Just get 2 Reichsguard or something, and you'll probably be in an okay spot. And that's just my 2 cents there from Mighty Marin's build here. Real quick, I do want to look on the Ragnarok Queen stats just to highlight how pretty bonkers they are now. If we can find them, the Greenskins. So just let's look at it. Let's melee attack 63, and with bonus versus large, you're up to 77, which is pretty crazy. And that's without the cheap buffs Greenskins can drop 24/7. And as a point of reference, let's compare a few other anti-large specialists, because there are a few in this game. Obviously, some other factions have some nasty anti-large specialists. Carnosaur, 41. It only gets bumped up to 76, which obviously is better than the Ragnarok Queen, especially because it's a cheaper unit overall. But yeah, that's she's basically got the same. And obviously, this isn't a generic. We're not talking a generic Ragnarok Spider here, though. Even a generic one is okay. Generic Ragnarok is up to a respectable 68 melee attack versus large, and you do have that poison and all that, which is really, really nice. Great equalizer. Or, for example, we can look at a Sarge Scarvet on a Carnosaur. And Sarge Scarvet on a Carnosaur also only gets 35. He's actually got the same thing. So yeah, he doesn't have comparables. He's not actually quite on par. Even Shaggoth, I think, might not have quite the same staying power. Shaggoth is 52. He's got a bonus versus large of 30. So yeah, 82. So it's a little better, but I just want to highlight that both the Ragnarok Spider and the Ragnarok Queen are respectable large hunters now. Do keep in mind they've also got pretty high HP pools as opposed to these other units. Shaggoth 6400, the Spider has 6800. They're much tankier, especially against non-AP damage. Poison augments that survivability in melee even better. Now, obviously, the melee defense is not necessarily the best, but still, it is going to help you if you're taking hits. And you do have Strider, which can impact on some maps for being able to move faster. So I just want to highlight how much better I think the Spider is now. That boost to melee attack definitely pushes into a whole new category, both for the vanilla Spider and also for the Ragnarok Queen especially. It just makes them brutal large hunters. So this is my 2 cents, just something I wanted to highlight. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining and fun. As usual, if you have comments, critiques, questions, don't hesitate to put them down below, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.